Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing abrupt climate change, and we are going to start with some hurricanes, and more hurricanes. Hurricane Florence starts flooding parts of the Carolinas. Today, the rain turned sideways Thursday. Rivers swelled, floodwaters began to fill streets as massive Hurricane Florence trudged toward North Carolina. Florence is now a Category 1 storm with a 10-foot storm surge, according to National Weather Service. The storm's outer bands lashed towns on the barrier islands and on some of the Tar Heels state's rivers. As the center of the cyclone moved to make a probable Friday landfall, the Morehead City of the rain and surf pounded the shoreline and took aim at the few boats still in the water. In New Bern on the Joyce River, the CNN team had to keep shifting position in a park as the water kept rising until it was too dangerous to stay in the area. A weather station in Atlantic Beach recorded a total of 12.73 inches for a 24-hour period. Farther south in Carolina Beach, the northern end of the town was being swamped as water crashed over the dunes. Some areas also saw the first of the hurricane-force winds at Cape Lookout, where the sustained winds of 83 miles per hour. There were sustained winds of 83 miles per hour and gusts of 106. Very, very high water. With this storm, it's a Category 1, but the storm surge and the flooding is going to be that of a Category 4. CNN meteorologist Jennifer Gray said Thursday night, she said the momentum the storm has generated on its long trip across the Atlantic won't go away just because the winds decrease a couple miles an hour. While wind speeds dropped Thursday, forecasters reminded people that what makes Florence extremely dangerous are the potential deadly storm surges, the expected mammoth coastal flooding, and historic rainfall. Florence is expected to move slowly as it approaches North and South Carolina, whipping hurricane-force winds and dumping relentless rain at least through Saturday. It's not going to take much in a lot of these areas to saturate the soil, so trees are going to come down really easily and knock down power lines, said Ken Graham, director of the National Hurricane Center. Florence landfall. Florence will be when the actual center of the eye reaches land will be Friday afternoon at the earliest. A gauge in the Joyce River near the town of Oriental indicated the water was 4 feet over flood stage and more than 5 feet over normal levels. Not looking good. I'm just remembering that I have lots of friends in North Carolina, as well as a smattering in South Carolina. I'm going to have to check in on them today. Let's move on to Hurricane Helene. UK weather forecast. Hurricane Helene sees London reach 26°C in Scotland near freezing. Let's investigate this. Hurricane Helene is on a collision path with the UK, and forecasters have predicted the remnants of the Atlantic system will split the nation with a large and abnormal temperature divide. The Met Office has claimed Helene, which is currently bulldozing its way through the Atlantic, could bring thermometers as high as 26°C in the London area while reaching only 6°C in Scotland. Margot Pitania, a Met Office forecaster, said Storm Helene is still in the Atlantic, but it could have an influence in Britain next week. Remnants of that system could bring wet weather across western parts of the UK on Tuesday, and we still need to keep an eye on it. But it could have a positive effect on eastern parts because it could also bring tropical air. Speaking to The Sun, Mr. Patania added the London area could see temperatures reach 26°C on Tuesday because of the very warm air coming its way. On Saturday, it will be dry and bright across many parts, and temperatures could reach 21°C in the southeast. It will be significantly colder in northern parts, with temperatures being as low as 6°C in Scotland. Describing the conditions for Sunday, the Met Office forecaster said it will start to get warmer, with London and Kent seeing 23°C. However, Emma Smith said more details will emerge within the next day over what impacts the storm might have. She said, Helene is moving up from the Atlantic towards us. Hurricane Joyce is also in the Atlantic, so we need to see how those two systems are going to move around each other because that could have an impact. It looks like Helene will move towards Ireland on Tuesday morning. It's possible that the west coast of Wales and Cornwall could get some winds as well, but we will get a clearer picture of what to expect very soon. Helene is one of 3 life-threatening hurricanes moving through the Atlantic behind Hurricane Florence and Isaac. How many hurricanes are there? Hold on. Hurricane Florence has sparked mass evacuations as it charges towards landfall in the U.S. along the East Coast. And so there's Florence, Helene, Isaac, Joyce, Olivia, and a typhoon. This isn't striking any raised eyebrows at all anywhere in the news community. This is just normal, 4 or 5 hurricanes in the ocean at once. And we were also seeing that in the Pacific a couple weeks ago. Hurricane Florence isn't the only storm threatening lives and property around the world. Also spinning the Atlantic are tropical storms Helene and Isaac and subtropical storm Joyce, while tropical depression Olivia and super typhoon Mangkhut are making waves in the Pacific. Okay, got it. Olivia and Mangkhut. In the Atlantic, while Joyce is far out to sea and poses no immediate threat to land, 70-mile-per-hour Helene is forecast to roar near the Azores on Saturday and Sunday, the National Hurricane Center said. The Portuguese Weather Service said that wind gusts of up to 74 miles per hour are possible by the weekend in the Azores, an island chain about 850 miles west of Portugal. Tropical storm Isaac, which passed between the Caribbean island nations of Dominica and Martinique late Wednesday and early Thursday, is now moving almost due west across the eastern Caribbean Sea. The poorly organized 45-mile-per-hour storm is not expected to strengthen, but should maintain its tropical storm strength for the next few days. It should dissipate by early next week, the Hurricane Center said. Meteorologists are also keeping an eye on yet another tropical disturbance that's spinning in the western Gulf of Mexico. The Hurricane Center is giving the system a 50% chance of becoming a tropical depression or storm within the next 5 days. Regardless of development, heavy rainfall and gusty winds are expected across portions of northeastern Mexico, Texas, and Louisiana on Friday and Saturday, the Hurricane Center said. In the Pacific, tropical depression Olivia continues to move west away from Hawaii. Heavy rain and winds from Olivia downed trees, knocked out power, and prompted evacuations of several homes on Hawaii's Maui Island, but spared the state widespread damage Wednesday. Maui Mayor Alan Arakawa said he hoped the effects of the storm would be limited. It's been an ordeal, but we're coming through this fairly well. Meanwhile, what could be the world's most dangerous storm at the moment is Super Typhoon Mangkhut, which now has winds of 165 miles per hour with 200-mile-per-hour gusts and is taking aim on the Philippines, according to the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. Mangkhut could hit the Philippines' northeastern Cagayan province on Saturday. Philippine authorities began evacuating thousands of people Thursday from the path of the typhoon, closing schools, readying bulldozers for landslides, and placing rescuers and troops on full alert in the country's north. Yeah, that's just totally normal. Completely normal, guys. Nothing to see here. I'm going to read a little a piece by one of my followers and frequent commenters, and one moment. Sorry, I'm actually trying to get used to this red light. The non-blue light computer thing is like, it's a little disorientating or whatever. I know that's not a word. This is from Owl Nation Legal. And he has a blog or a site called 9/11 24/7 365. And there are some really cool like bumper sticker cutouts here. I'll link these below. The bumper stickers say 9/11 24/7 365, and he thought blowing up New York City was suicidal. Anyways, there's an article here called, well, I guess it's under the header, The Science and the Basic Math. And it starts out, the first equation, the big problem likely to trigger a catastrophic collapse of civilization and widespread death, crop failures, collapse of infrastructure across the northern hemisphere is not CO2 or methane emissions, drought, solar cycles, ocean acidification, ozone depletion, hurricanes, or record floods. It is simply the latency heat equation. If a cubic centimeter of water is frozen with a temperature of 0 degrees Celsius and you apply 80 calories to the cc of frozen water, it will melt, but will still be 0 degrees Celsius. However, if another 80 calories is applied to the same cubic centimeter of water, its temperature will spike to 80 degrees Celsius. This is something that's been demonstrated by Guy McPherson and others. This is a huge problem, as it means once there is no more ice in the Arctic Ocean, all the heat produced by industrial, urban, manufacturing, agriculture, and 10,001 other processes, including volcanic and solar activity, will have no coolant in the Arctic to act as a heat sink. Just like the radiator in your car, once it's out of water, the engine temperature quickly skyrockets. The temperature needle races to red almost instantly, and your engine changes state from a functional engineering marvel to a lump of steel, leaking fuel, and sometimes a fireball of fun. It will never be an engine again. That is a great analogy. If you've ever been in a car that had the radiator suddenly stop working or run out of water, imagine what will happen to the northern hemisphere when the Arctic, our radiator, can't provide any measure of cooling for all the human-made and geo-astro heat. Volcanic activity is just one natural source, as is solar radiation, greenhouse effects of CO2 and methane. Add to the heat produced by civilization, and the temperature of the northern hemisphere is likely to skyrocket almost overnight, just like the engine in a car with no cooling. The estimates of the NASA and Stanford scientists we've talked to, as well as astrobiologists and oceanographers who study how the oceans serve as a heat sink, and scientists who study millions of years of paleo records, is that much of the Earth from latitude 60 north down to about 40 south will become a scorching, uninhabitable hothouse with temperatures easily surpassing 50 degrees Celsius, that's 122 Fahrenheit, and often reaching 60 degrees Celsius, that's 140 degrees Fahrenheit, for prolonged periods. Obviously, outdoor farming in these regions will now be impossible. So even if human populations could survive indoors with air conditioning, the outside world would be a lot like the hottest regions of the Sahara Desert, the Middle East, and Death Valley, California. This also means the biosphere of bugs and birds required for soil regeneration, pollinating, pest control, and a host of natural biological support structures humans relied on in the past will all disappear also overnight. Today, scientists already estimate 75% of the biomass of insects is gone, and many people notice this due to the lack of bugs on their windshield. The idea of surviving indoors with AC during deadly heat waves relies on an electrical grid capable of producing and maintaining the heavy electrical loads, a system which many, if not most communities simply do not have in place. This week at the climate conference in San Francisco, September 2018, we're enjoying the effects of the cold water upwelling San Francisco is famous for, dampening the high temperatures already scorching San Diego and Los Angeles to the south, and Portland and Seattle to the north. Once that cold water upwelling stops, San Francisco will be as hot as San Diego, if not as hot as Panama. And shortly after that, as other effects increase, such as the loss of the ice albedo and increased solar radiation, warming the Arctic waters, and methane emissions already skyrocketing throughout the summer of 2018 continue to rise, it won't take long, perhaps a year at most, before the heat wave temperatures of these cities become unbearable. Few people own AC in San Francisco, nor is the grid capable of the huge demand load that such rapid infrastructure upgrade would require to keep these people alive. If humans had enough time, perhaps we could adapt our cities and indoor agriculture production to become more heat resilient. No such luck, and as a result, it's highly likely millions of people will be dying each and every day during 2019 and 2020 as an ice-free Arctic blue ocean event emerges and the temperature needle of the northern hemisphere races to red. This might happen, it might not. Prudent risk management would dictate we do something, anything, to upgrade infrastructure today. Humans, engineers, politics, and sources of capital simply won't work at the speed required to avert this disaster, which is already unfolding as you read this now. The second equation: take a white coffee cup full of water and leave it in the direct sun at noon for an hour and measure the temperature. Repeat the same experiment with a black or dark blue cup of the same amount of water. Notice the temperature difference. This simple experiment, any 10-year-old fourth grader can easily understand, clearly demonstrates the effect color has on heating objects of various colors. White reflects light. Darker colors absorb light. Now freeze the water in the white cup and let it melt in the sun. Repeat with the dark cup and it will melt faster. In fact, the ice in the white cup might not all melt. Even with half ice, half water, the temperature of the white cup may remain close to or at 0 degrees Celsius. If this were the Arctic, the experiment shows how ice can partially melt during the summer months and easily refreeze in the winter. No such luck with a blue Arctic Ocean where the ice has already melted and the solar radiation pumps heat into the water, raising the temperature even further. A similar experiment can be performed with any dark blue kiddie pool and a white one. Any 10-year-old kid can easily predict the darker pool will have a higher temperature in the sun. Some people, including many scientists, erroneously think even a blue Arctic Ocean can refreeze in the winter because it always has before. What they forget is that humans haven't experienced an ice-free Arctic during our evolution, nor have we experienced water under the ice streaming up from the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans, which is sometimes as warm as a bath. This effect caused much of the Bering Sea to remain unfrozen during the winter of 2017-2018. And during the winter of 2018 and 2019, it's highly likely the last bits of thin ice in the Arctic will continue to melt by the spring of 2019 or before, and we will have a wide open blue ocean unable to reflect any solar radiation using the albedo effect. Rather, it will absorb all that heat, and with Greenland, the only real ice structure in the northern hemisphere, the melt rate there will skyrocket overnight. This is a simple equation of latency heat above combined with solar radiation, hot air masses, and heat also absorbed across Siberia, Canada, and Alaska tundra, all acting like bricks in an oven to warm surrounding structures even at night. The fact is, even after the winter of 2018-2019, the Arctic will never freeze again. This can also be expressed as wattage per square meter and is likely to at least triple, probably more. Put your hand on a 25-watt light bulb and then on a 75 or 100-watt light bulb, and this difference is obvious. Anyone who believes Greenland ice will still be intact 2 to 5 years from now is a delusional optimist. As for San Francisco's offshore cold water upwelling, kiss that goodbye as well. And as for temperature records in San Diego or Seattle, those too will soon be an ancient memory. Many scientists believe dirty emissions, such as soot from coal plants, are darkening the ice and causing the melt to accelerate. While true, this effect is minimal compared to the effect of warm water and high-temperature air masses baking the entire region. Again, it's highly likely that during the spring and summer of 2019, Arctic temperatures will be balmy enough to wear shorts. The water temperature will be well above 30 degrees Celsius or 86 Fahrenheit. And before summer is over, those temperatures might break 40 degrees Celsius, 104 Fahrenheit. So yes, within 1 to 2 years, the Arctic will be as warm as a jacuzzi on high. Again, you can forget about the cold water upwelling anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere. While jacuzzing in the Arctic might sound great to you, the fisheries and every other species there except humans will obviously perish. They can't go south to find cooler temperatures at 40 to 50 degrees. Chile, Argentina, New Zealand, and they'll die almost overnight. If you haven't seen a wild polar bear by now, you probably never will. Seals, sea lions, salmon, halibut, cod, and most of the Northern Hemisphere species will become extinct in a blink. Extinct in a blink. Arctic ice albedo was a great resource for humanity and the planet, and it's going, darn near gone. Get over it. Brace for impact. The third equation. This is the one everyone talks about because it amplifies the others. Not only will everything in the Northern Hemisphere heat up, but as it does, methane emissions will skyrocket. They're already streaming off the Arctic seafloor to the atmosphere, as well as literally blowing out large holes in Siberian, Canadian, and Alaskan tundra from gas pressure. Many scientists consider this danger to be the main event, which will send global temperature skyrocketing in just a few weeks or months at most. The reason is that methane is initially 150 to 300 times more potent as a greenhouse gas. If the CO2 we have in the atmosphere was a 1-inch blanket, imagine a 300-inch blanket, 25 foot thick. Yes, methane effects drop quickly down to about 80 times more potent than CO2, and over a decade down to about 20 times, but we won't have a decade to survive, let alone adjust. This event, already well documented in the past and present, explains why previous mass extinctions like the PETM saw 98% of all life on Earth disappear almost overnight. This effect is also unfolding as you read this now. There are other adding it all up. This is the next section. There are other equations which will be discussed below, such as global dimming, increased water vapor, which is a huge greenhouse gas and is rapidly rising, but we really don't need much more than these three to explain how 98% of all life on Earth died almost overnight. Yes, many species of flora and fauna will migrate to cooler regions, but species that depend on an icy habitat will not be able to get to Antarctica, and the glaciers of the Northern Hemisphere will melt and disappear as if a blowtorch had been applied. Species in lower latitudes will also be wiped out as temperatures from the equator all the way up to 60 to 70 degrees north will be at fairly consistent scorching tropical level. Again, perhaps 50 to 60 degrees Celsius. If you think 5 to 7 billion people are going to run out to the home improvement store and plug in their AC to beat the heat, you are a delusional optimist with no understanding of how civilized infrastructure evolves and the timescale and capital required to make these radical adjustments. The long shot kicker. There is also the distinct possibility that if enough methane gas gets into the atmosphere, the sky could literally ignite. While it's just a remote theory held by very few scientists and far from certain prediction, it is a catastrophic event mentioned in some religious texts, and since humans have never seen Earth racing towards these high temperature conditions, who knows what sort of other unexpected consequences may play out. One thing is certain, if the sky does happen to ignite, there won't be much oxygen left for animals anywhere on Earth, or at least not in the Northern Hemisphere. Speaking of oxygen, the fourth equation. How long is this? Oh my gosh. Hello. Sir, I didn't realize this was this long. Okay, I'm going to just keep reading. Let's see how fast I can do this. I thought this was about half the size that it is. Excuse me. Speaking of oxygen, the fourth equation, ocean plankton levels are already at 50% of what they were just a few decades ago. This may sound trivial until you consider plankton produces 70% of our oxygen, and our backup oxygen machine, the Amazon, is quickly turning into a desert. Read that over and over until you figure that out. Or until you figure out that unless you have an oxygen machine with you everywhere you go, even if temperatures don't skyrocket, you'll die in minutes. Simply put, ocean acidification, whereby atmospheric CO2 dissolved in our oceans producing carbonic acid, is killing our primary oxygen machine, while increased drought, wildfires, and rampant deforestation is rapidly destroying our backup oxygen machine. On top of this disaster, also already in motion, a recent fire that swept across the Amazon produced more CO2 emissions than all of the emissions of the US for a year. While rising temperatures may in fact kill the majority of humans before oxygen levels fall to lethal levels, imagine surviving that phase, only to find out that while we adjusted to some Mad Max hothouse Earth and ocean temperatures and huge greenhouse gas emissions, the remaining plankton died off. The Amazon turned into a wasteland, and the new gizmo to buy for your children at Christmas is an oxygen mask with an attached O2 generator. Lovely. And just how many species, both north and south, can afford one of those? Adding this into the equation, and Earth quickly begins to look like a cross between too hot Venus and no oxygen Mars. In other words, someone needs to tell old Elon Musk we don't have to build a Mars colony to test our ability to survive on an uninhabitable scorching rock. We're creating it here on Earth and are just about finished with our various kill all of Earth's biosphere projects. The fifth equation, if dwindling oxygen supplies don't make you nervous, let's toss in megatons of deadly gas, more toxic than cyanide. As life in the oceans dies off, paleo records clearly show increased levels of hydrogen sulfide. This means instead of a cool, clean, pollution-free sea breeze blowing across your face, you'll be inhaling the same fumes your battery gives off when it's overcharged, and it only takes 1 or 2 breaths before you drop dead. If heat waves, droughts, and famine or low oxygen levels don't kill you, Earth has a plan B, and it won't be pretty. If you think moving to the Midwest will save you, you'll be choosing a region which will likely be hotter than the hottest day in the Sahara or Middle East has ever seen. The hottest day the Sahara or Middle East has ever seen in human history, and you'll be betting that the ocean-produced hydrogen sulfide gas won't saturate the atmosphere, replacing oxygen, since plankton will be long gone by that time. It's tough to imagine any human still alive by then, but since we claim to be so smart and adaptable, perhaps a few underground pockets may still exist for a while, and yes, with enough air scrubbers, indoor, underground gardening, AC units driven by surface solar and wind, along with lights and electronics, some small pockets of humanity may survive all of these catastrophes until their electronics fail. Imagine being in an underground bunker. Excuse me. Where were we? Imagine being in an underground bunker with 550 or 500 people who make it for a few years through all of these catastrophes and find that your primary systems have finally failed. Your backup systems are barely functional because bearings or pumps, circuit boards, power supplies, and a host of high-tech gear have both a limited service life and few, if any, replacement possibilities. There won't be a lot of people working at Amazon to sell and ship gear, nor will there be any surface-level hardware stores, factories, or any other modern infrastructure to send you a new O-ring, PC board, or even a light switch. Whatever you have when you ditch underground, that's about all you get. You may be able to get a few parts here and there as civilization unwinds, or fabricate some alternatives. But anyone who relies on high-tech gear to support a complex civilization underground is walking on a razor's edge right into a brick wall of dwindling, then non-existent supplies. Go to the surface, take a deep breath of CO2 with low O2 levels at best, or a mouthful of hydrogen sulfide, and kiss your delusional bacon goodbye. Yes, there may be some underground facilities with spacesuits to walk to the surface in a century of grow lights, solar panels, and more, so it's not completely impossible for humanity and the human gene to survive through all these disasters, but only a fool would fail to recognize it's highly unlikely. It's a long shot with less than a 1% chance of success. Like it or don't. The sixth equation. Even if oxygen levels remain in a reasonable range and we manage to adapt crops to underground grow rooms, recycle our urine and wastewater, create underground water tanks to collect massive floods from storm events, replace solar panels broken by high wind hurricane events, and get past 1001 other natural disasters unfolding at an accelerating pace, ozone levels are decreasing due to methane decomposition, sulfur dioxide emissions from volcanic and human activity, and will probably decrease even faster as other gases make their way into the atmosphere. Ozone is a form of oxygen, and it likes to oxidize almost anything it can, forming things like rust, iron oxide, and even more CO2 from CH4. Methane. If ozone levels drop to a level where solar UV is no longer blocked, ozone's primary benefit to humans, we will sterilize, kill nearly every living thing on the surface of the earth. The Marriott Hotel next to the SF Climate Summit has these neat black light hand dryers in the bathroom. That UV light sterilizing bacteria on your hands as warm air dries them. UV does a great job of killing things, and solar UV does the best job of all. What it actually does to humans is destroy our immune system, so you may simply die of some other infection or cancer, who knows. No matter what, the idea of farming on the surface of the planet, let alone rehabilitating habitats for wild animals, is again pure delusional optimism. UV kills trees too. It kills everything. Plenty of people have noticed the sun feels hotter and treetops are all browning, while many trees, groves, and forests are just dying. Sometimes from new pests which have migrated, sometimes due to drought, and increasingly due to UV levels increasing worldwide. This effect will likely accelerate the loss of flora and fauna, as well as sterilize, kill whatever surface life the oceans might still have, even with higher temperatures and ocean acidification, thereby increasing the likelihood of even more hydrogen sulfide gas and lower oxygen levels. This is getting fun, guys. The seventh equation, do we really have to explain what happens when 8 billion people face dwindling crop yields? With a record wildfire season, the global harvests of 2018 are estimated to be down 20 to 30%, while some delusional optimists believe this is just a cycle. Given the unlikely odds temperatures will ever go down again, nor will drought trends reverse, the overwhelming odds that the crop yields worldwide will soon crash by 70 to 90% within just a year or two. The overwhelming odds are, yes, wealthy nations who can afford $20 loaves of bread might last another year or two. But obviously the death, riots, and outright warfare, not to mention pandemics and other effects raging across much of the planet, are going to affect even wealthy nations. Anyone who believes a prepper living in the Ozarks on their little farm has a snowball's chance in Hades has never seen a snowball in the Sahara Desert. Put another way, when Russians are starving, first their pets disappeared. When Russians were starving, first their pets disappeared, and the following year, their children. Read that a few times until you finally get it. The eighth equation. There are literally dozens of these disasters already in progress, but the real kicker many scientists fear is the fact that with dwindling manufacturing, distribution, food supplies, perhaps fuel supplies, it's pretty difficult to ship crude across an ocean of deadly gas, let alone tap wells in scorching deserts with 50°C and 60°C heat. Labor shortages will crop up rather quickly. Pop quiz, what happens when skilled workers no longer maintain nuclear facilities? There are about 1,600 nuclear facilities worldwide, with about 450 nuclear generating stations in that mix. Hurricane Florence alone is threatening 6 of them directly and 24 others with record floods. What What happens to a region when local nuclear plant begins spewing radioactive ionizing gas? How about 5 or 10 of them? Both the actual release of radioactive emissions as well as the panic and rapid mass migration alone will kill likely thousands, if not millions worldwide. View any simple map of nuclear plants all around the world and you'll see a horror story already in the making. In fact, by the time you read this, the east coast of the US may already be in the midst of a nuclear disaster from Hurricane Florence. Then again, perhaps not. Perhaps that hurricane will simply rip up coastlines, flood inland areas. The plants will make it through okay, and only after skyrocketing temps, famine, and riots take their toll will the skilled workers stop showing up to maintain those plants. This problem could actually be avoided if we removed all the spent fuel from every nuclear plant on Earth and either sunk them in the ocean, pretty toxic, but oceans are doomed anyways, or in salt mines or other deep underground facilities, or utilized accelerated processes to break down radioactive material, or a dozen other proposals, none of which are actually taking place today. Then we turn to the nuclear fuel used to produce all that electricity you'll need for that global jump in AC demand loads. We need to shut them down and bury all that highly radioactive fuel as well. If we did all that and managed to survive in underground bunkers until Earth cooled off in a few 100,000 or millions of years, yes, the human gene might survive all of these looming, already unfolding disasters. No such luck. No one wants that spent fuel, let alone highly radioactive fuel, and there is no chance any utility anywhere on Earth would bankrupt itself by closing its nuclear plants. No way. Nor is there any chance that people wise enough to see the future clearly would allow utilities to shut down their hope and prayer power grid they intend to rely on to drive their massive air conditioning loads. Forget it. We're not going to do it. Nor has humanity proven to be coordinated, let alone prudent, enough to force the issue. A rough calculation by a handful of scientists suggests that if just 5% or 80 out of 1,600 plants catastrophically fail, the entire surface of the Earth, our atmosphere and oceans will be as radioactive as if we had a full-out nuclear war. In short, we don't need solar UV to sterilize Earth. Humans have produced all the toxic radioactive chemicals and equipment to do the job quite nicely. Then there's the rapid rise in sea levels we'll experience as Greenland cooks under a northern hemisphere blowtorch, while Antarctica begins to deteriorate at a similar pace. As sea levels rise to over 200 feet higher than they are today, no one will be able to maintain the global network of flooded nuclear generating stations all around the world. The disasters of Hurricane Florence are just a warm-up of what is to come. If this issue is not addressed quickly, humanity and all life on Earth is doomed. We've used chemical and nuclear engineering to manufacture a wide array of lethal substances, not the least being agrochems from Monsanto's Deaf, Dumb, and Blind Agent Orange program, aka Roundup. And as the various chemicals continue to spew into the environment, what other future besides extinction of all life, including humans, did we expect? Whoa, Nelly, this is long. I can't finish this, and I'm already at 40 minutes. I was really trying to go for it, but we're going to leave this here, and I'm going to read the rest of this tomorrow because I didn't even begin to think that this was had this much information. So thank you, Owl Nation Legal. This is already a great article. I really like this. I want to finish it tomorrow, and I will finish it tomorrow. Thank you all for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. I will be back tomorrow with another video. Until next time, peace.